Let's get into the Toolbox Manager, where all our encoding and metadata editing is going to be done. On the left side here, you'll see a directory of folders. Notice some of them look empty, and that's because they don't contain any audio files that can be loaded. Whereas in this folder, we can immediately see that there are 5 audio files that could potentially be loaded into the manager. And here they are, 5 WAV files that are my final bounced masters, ready to be encoded. We have all sorts of useful information here about each track, including the output size of the encoded file. Notice what happens when I select a different codec. Smaller file size. This can be helpful when you're trying to stick to an optimum target file size. So we already decided that we wanted to use MP3 at 320 kilobits per second. Now this button is a lifesaver, clip safe. What this does is so helpful. It will save your mix from clipping and sounding too crunchy, as can happen with a free encoder. Many people don't realize that the process of encoding and decoding can increase your peak level, sending it over to 0 dB, and therefore clipping. With the Clip Safe button on, the software will automatically compensate for any overs by reducing the overall level by the required amount, just enough to keep it from clipping. A real time saver. Now we just need to set the output directory where the software will put our encoded files. OK, and hit the Encode button. Great. If we refresh this directory, we can now see one file inside the encoded tracks folder. We can see that it's an MP3, and actually while we're here looking at this MP3 file, you'll see that we can also decode if we wanted to AIF or WAV. Now what about adding some metadata, like track name, artist, etc.? Okay, well that's easy, and it's all done over here, as I'm sure you already guessed. So I'll enter the name of the track, artist. We can add all this information if we wanted. I know the BPM is 128, so that might be useful to enter. Let's even add some artwork. We can either click in this area here and browse to the image, or just simply drag it in. Done. And so all this info will be embedded in the file itself and show up in iTunes or your MP3 player. All we need to do is hit Write to File. Of course, I could have set up the metadata before I encoded, but I wanted to show you that it can be added later if need be. Now the final thing I want to show you is another huge time saver. What if I want to encode a whole folder of files? No problem, the software handles batch processing. Just select all, and it will intelligently select similar file types. But of course you can't encode an AAC file that's already encoded. And in the same way, if I select this AAC, it will select all files that can be decoded. Okay, back to the WAVs. And hit Encode. And you go and make a coffee and let the software do its thing.